Good morning and welcome to our adult story time. If you recall, we're talking about Fractured Fairy Tales, which is a part of our summer reading program, Tales and Tales. And we're sharing the Fractured Fairy Tales as told by A.J. Jacobs. And these were stories that were featured on the Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends show. And today's story is Rumpelstiltskin. So let's get started on Rumpelstiltskin, and it's a fractured fairy tale, and I think you'll see why as the story goes along. Once upon a time, there was a miller's daughter named Gladys. Gladys had a pathetic existence. All day long, she would spin straw, and all night long, she'd sit up and think how she would like to be famous. Oh, to be famous, with untold riches and men falling at her feet, and her own line of action figures. One night, poof, a strange little man appeared before her. "Little lady," he said, "I can make you famous overnight." "Who are you?" "I am what is known as a PR man," he squeaked. "You know, public relations, publicity, flackery, glamorize the unglamorous, turn the pedestrian splendorous. Now let's see. What can you do, baby?" "Oh, I spin straw." "Spin straw. I love it. I love it." "What do you mean you love it?" she asked. "Don't interrupt. I'm looking for an idea. The spark. Of course, you spin straw into gold." "But I can't spin straw into..." Doesn't matter. I'll do the talking. I'll just contact Liz Smith." And so it happened that overnight, Gladys did become famous. Gossip pages, talk shows, and her own entourage of beefy security men who would beat up fans. Of course, nobody had ever seen the gold, but through the PR man's magic, and since it had appeared in all the papers, the people believed it. Every one of them, even the king. He called Gladys to the castle. "I understand you spin straw into gold," said the king. "Well, I am going to put you in a room full of my very best straw and have you spin me a heap of your very best gold. 24 carats, please. None of that 14-carat garbage." "But," protested Gladys, "of course, if you can't, you will be locked forever in my darkest dungeon, and I'm told the humidity down there is awful." "Oh," said Gladys. "Not so fast, my good king," said a voice. Who should it be but the PR man who had magically popped into the castle. "My client isn't giving gold away. You know that. However, she'll spin one room of gold for you on one condition. That if she does, she becomes your wife and therefore queen." The king agreed and signed on the dotted line. So did Gladys, and then Gladys was left to her task. "Well, now what?" she whined. "Have I ever let you down, baby?" the PR man asked, and true to his word, as the girl's eyes widened with amazement, the little man spun a room full of pure, unadulterated gold. "And now, my dear, our business ends. You are rich and famous. So until your firstborn comes into the world, I bid you adieu." Her firstborn? Gladys raised her eyebrows, but the little man pointed to the fine print at the bottom of the contract, conveniently providing her with a nuclear microscope with which she could read it. And sure enough, there it said in black and white that her firstborn child must be given to the PR man. Gladys wondered if the PR man had ever heard of adoption agencies, which would seem like an easier way to get kin, but it was too late. She had already signed it away. About a year later, a beautiful child was born to the king and queen, and sure enough, the little PR man came for the child, according to the contract. What the little man didn't know is that in reading the fine print, Gladys had found a loophole. "A loophole as big as a Mack carriage, buddy," the queen told the PR man, and then she read it to him. "If the party of the first part, that's me, within 3 days discovers the name of the party of the second part, that's you, the party of the first part shall keep the party of the third part. That's the little kid." Unfortunately, That was easier said than done. Not that it was so easy to say, mind you. She spat out dozens of names, from Alfred to Barnaby to Clyde to Zeke, but none of them was right. On the third night, Gladys was in despair, having exhausted all the names she knew. Just then, there was a knock at the palace door. And who should come in but a man who had no importance to the plot other than to get us out of this hole that we're in. He spoke as if he'd come from a long, long time ago. Like, "Hey man," he said to the Queen, "you don't know me, but I've got to hip you some news. Like the other day, I'm walking through this cool forest, when man, what do I see but this little cat going, 'Badu o bop she ram.' I am the Rumpelstiltskin man. The king's got his gold, the queen's got her fame, and their baby will have my Rumpelstiltskin name." The next day, when the little PR man appeared again, the Queen was ready. "Badu o bop she ram, you are Rumpelstiltskin, man." "Oops," said Rumpelstiltskin, "I really goofed." And so Gladys and the king lived happily ever after, and Rumpelstiltskin was never seen in the kingdom again. There were several reports concerning a young girl who could make diamonds out of turnips, but of course that was in another kingdom, and you can't believe everything that you read in the papers. And that was our second in our series of Fractured Fairy Tales. We hope you enjoyed the story. Until next time, stay safe, be healthy, and have a wonderful week.